welcome to La Via Las Vegas podcast. We're two physical therapists living the life in Las Vegas. I'm Dr. Erica.
And I'm Dr. Joe. We created this podcast for two reasons. First, to connect the healthcare, wellness, and fitness communities in Las Vegas. And second, to highlight all the amazing people we've met along the way.
Thank you for listening, and remember to take care of yourself.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
If you want to introduce yourself.
My name is Chuck Wood, but I write under the pen name Cal Sherwood, which is a play on my name.
And what do you do?
I am a full-time writer, author, entrepreneur.
And you have a whole interesting history as far as other things that you've done even before that.
Yes, military, underwater engineering, which is like underwater welding, burning, hydrostatic testing, laying submar mats, stuff like that. I'm fluent in sign language. My associate's degree is in American Sign Language. And then, just writing, learning how to really run a website and everything like that.
Very cool. Well, what brought you to Vegas?
Family. It was close enough to Utah, but far enough away from the snow. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very good. And what do you do for fun while you're out here in Vegas?
I CrossFit. I work out a lot. I have a German Shepherd who occupies a lot of my time. I'm teaching him how to swim right now. He phased out of the Border Patrol program because he was too friendly. So he knows all the commands. I think he passed cadaver, bomb, and drug, but he just didn't want to do the takedown. He just wanted belly rubs instead.
Mm. What does that entail? Like cadaver passing
sniffing for dead bodies. Maybe people that have been buried, something like that.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that was a thing too. I think of cadavers only when like the things that we study, right?
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
we were in grad school, that was like the only thing I would think about with a cadaver, but also known as dead bodies.
Absolutely. The only really, and I don't know if they were considered cadavers. At what point, I don't know when they become cadaver or when they're just a dead body. But when there was the Fort Bliss active shooter at the VA hospital, I got to sit in on his autopsy. You know, and he was an overweight man, so it was really interesting when they kind of opened him up. His flesh, the fat parts turned like a yellowish tint, kind of like amber. Mm-hmm. It was really interesting.
Yeah, and people don't realize it too, but like when you die, you can donate your body to science. And I don't know if you can actually say like what science. I don't think that you can really pick. Like I think you just do it or you don't. But like that's where we get cadavers for medical school and PT school, and like it's definitely enhances your learning experience.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll tell a story too about that. We had between a 4 or 5 group of us, we basically like spent the whole semester with them. So we like developed this relationship with them. It's like not a weird thing, but it's like a special bond you create with them because you're basically taking apart the cadaver.
Absolutely.
And you're like understanding the layers and all the things. So I think it's just a special experience. We did something at the end of the semester to like kind of thank their families,
honor them.
and honor their families. But they provided us such a unique experience, so we can provide that to other people. So, and that's another thing that I don't think everybody knows about.
Yeah, well, I mean, people who don't choose that, the medical profession, either way, they don't understand what all goes into it. But like, I became fascinated with the idea once I went to the Bodies show. That gave me a good insight into it.
Yeah, that's a cool show. I don't know, are those still around?
I think so.
Yeah, it's opened up now that COVID's on the down.
Mm-hmm. But the show travels, right? Like, doesn't it go to different spots?
It does. It does. It is a traveling show. So right now, I believe it's at the Luxor.
Oh, I didn't realize it was out here even.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I watched it here in Vegas. I attended it here in Vegas.
Huh. We'll have to go by and check that out while it's still there.
Yeah.
I think that's funny that your dog was not mean enough, so then they didn't want him, but he could do all the other skills. He's like, I just really like being petted, though.
He's a really good dog. He, obviously when they're, when they kennel them for, as far as Border Patrol, they're kept segregated because their job is only, what they're being trained for. So we're working on socializing him with other dogs, which, it's a foreign concept to him. So, but he's doing better. His favorite thing in the world is the hose. Like if I turn that hose on, he will just hold it in his mouth until he drowns himself. He tries not to go in the pool as much as he can, but if he's chasing the hose, sometimes he falls in, and then he cries.
You just scoop him out, or he can swim now?
No, he swims now.
Okay.
The way we learned how to swim, because I tried to get in there and teach him how to swim, but he didn't want me to be there. It was just too claustrophobic for him. So I would just take the hose and spray, and then he would just chase the hose water in the pool while he's swimming. So
very nice. And is your dog like food centric or like play centric?
Play centric. All the time, yeah. He's always bringing me something. He's always got something in his mouth. Right now, it's a dead duck stuffed animal thing that has a. He doesn't like the squeaks, so he pulls the squeaks out immediately of every toy. Even Kongs, which are supposed to be like dog proof, they're not Duke proof.
I see. It's interesting because we have a friend out here that they have a dog, and it is the most food-centric dog I've ever seen. Food-centered, however you say it. And that dog, to the point that I don't even think that the dog cares about being petted. It's just like, who has food immediately right now?
Really?
And then the dog will just switch between looking at different people. And that, yeah, it's crazy. So when you're not working, or I guess you are working, but you're
Yes.
working as far as an author. But you said that previously that you had military experience as well. So what got
Correct.
you into the military and made you take that path?
So my brother Travis, he was blown up in January of 2007. He was hit by a triple stacked anti-tank mine, and he was in a Hemet wrecker. They were out on a recovery mission. So the way the cab exploded, it broke his back, and then the cab caught on fire. So somebody rescued him, and from what I understand, they also stepped on another mine, which caused a lot more damage. So he was in Walter Reed Medical Center in D.C. for about 3.5 years. He had to learn how to walk. He had to learn everything. And he did pretty good. And then they had to amputate his leg because he developed this, I'm not sure what the technical term is, but they called it HO for short. But basically, his body rapidly regrew, and he grew a hip on top of a hip. He grew a femur on top of a femur. So, but it was like, it wasn't smoothed out bone. It was like coral reef, jagged. So once a month, they would radiate him, and they would cut him from top of the hip down to the foot, and they would have to go in and chisel out all that extra bone. And eventually, his leg just wasn't surviving, so they amputated it. So then he had to learn how to walk again. But, yeah, at no point did he ever complain. Not once. You know, all the excruciating pain. They had him on a lot of narcotic medicine. And even when he was having withdrawals, because he just one day decided he didn't want to take those anymore. So he just cut himself off. And he was having severe withdrawals from it. And at no point did he complain. And I was like, at that point, I was still young. And I kind of had a discipline problem. So I was like, I needed that, So one, I joined because I wanted to show my service to him, to our country, but also because I wanted the discipline, and the honor, integrity, and the loyalty that he had. And that's why I joined. And I became a military policeman.
What made you pick military police?
So my, I guess he'd be my great uncle. He was a Navy military policeman, and then he transitioned and became a Navy SEAL, and he did all these crazy things that he could never talk about. But I don't know. I just wanted to be like him, I guess.
So it's probably a little bit different than like regular police, where the people that you're going after have like military training.
Yeah,
it's
they're
probably
all
a completely different mindset.
When you're in OSIT, which is one station unit training, it's like basic and AIT combined. But when you're in that, they tell you, that everybody you're gonna deal with, because we only have jurisdiction with military. They say that everybody you're going to deal with are trained to kill. So, that's what separates you from regular civilian law enforcement. Normally, but now I think regular law enforcement, they got a lot going for them right now. So.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So what's the training like for that then?
It's a lot of practical. They've got these whole different scenarios. It was over in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And they basically, like you go through, like for me, I went through crime scene photography. I went through, the whole issuing a ticket, pulling somebody over, customer service always. And you learn along the way, and then you go to more schools. Like I went to SRT, which is basically the Army SWAT team. And you make it through phase 1, you make it through phase 2, and then you just separate from being a regular military policeman patrol officer, and then you go to like a different platoon that is for SWAT. And so there's so many different branches.
It's really cool.
So what is underwater welding? What is
Underwater welding. So there's a school in Seattle. It's called DIT. It's the Divers Institute of Technology. And I was fascinated. Going back to my great uncle, the Navy diver. He one Christmas he just gave me all of his diving stuff. I had dive knives that went halfway up my leg. Like I had all the coolest things, and I was like, I want that. So this it was 10208 January of 2008. I moved up to Seattle, and I attended this school. It was like 8 months long, 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and it was awesome. Like your first week is like, it's like your gas laws, physics, and then you do your chamber run, just to make sure that you can equalize the pressure, that's put on you. And then you're just, right after that, you're in the water. And every couple of weeks is a different section. You go from underwater hydraulics, tools, chainsaws, salvage, just everything. And it was so cool. The only part I didn't like was NDT, which is non-destructive testing, because it's just so time-consuming. Like, they give you this little, I forget, a magnetor something or another. But basically, it's this little cube, and you start at, there's a big ship, and you start at the surface of the water, and you hold it there, and it tells you the density of the thickness of the ship. And then, you're in a full Kirby Morgan helmet that's got comms and everything, so you tell them what your reading was, then you go down 4 inches, then you go down 4 inches, then you go down, and you just go down this massive ship. And then you wait for the tide to kind of raise the ship enough to go under and come back up the other side, and so to make more of a tunnel, you dredge. We have these giant dredgers that just kind of burrow underneath the ship. But yeah, NDC was just the most boring part of it. But all in all, it was really cool. I loved it. I got, certified at scuba as well by doing that, but everything we did was surface supplied diving.
So you did that before you did the military
Before
police
I did,
thing?
yes, sir.
So you can just change career paths like that?
Yeah. I'm a Gemini.
So when you're in the military, are you already thinking that you're going to write a book at some point? Or is that some inspiration that came to you later on?
Honestly, probably when I was in 4th grade, I knew I was going to write. Like I was always obsessed with words. In fact, every time I went to school, the first thing I did was opened up the dictionary with the front desk secretary, and she would tell me the word of the day. And then throughout the day, I had to, weirdly enough, the only word I remember from that is protuberance, which is like a bulge or knob. That's the only word that has stuck with me. But I would have to use whatever word she read off to me. I'd have to pronounce it to her, use it in a sentence, then use it throughout the day. And so I really built up my vocabulary repertoire. And I don't know. I've always been really good at, just fictionalizing, daily activities that have happened. I like to fluff it. But, for just to make it fiction, because I don't know if I want to approach nonfiction yet, just because it's very closely monitored, and has to be all accurate in order for it to be considered nonfiction. And a lot of the descriptive words that I use, or the way that I'll use the words, make it fictional. So, but yeah, I always knew I was going to, and then I finally decided I was just going to do it for myself. And I had originally signed with an international publishing company. And they kept on trying to make changes, nonstop changes. And I was still within that window where I could pull my contract with them. And so I did. I'm still waiting for my LLC, but I just decided to start my own company. And, so obviously I'm the only one published under my brand. But once I finish publishing all of my novels that are all complete, I'll have probably by the end of the year, I'll have 4 on the shelves. Right now I have 2. The first one is The Morning Glories. And the second one is called Tell Me Again How Great I Am. And so my third and fourth will come out later in the year.
And you were telling me that you have a pretty interesting process for writing where you think of an object first and then you try and write a story around that.
Yeah. So like The Morning Glories, everywhere I've ever lived, my mom, my grandma, they've always planted morning glories, and towards the teens and stuff of my my upbringing, was military, so we were traveling around a lot. But they always planted morning glories, and they were always my favorite. So originally, the title was called "Have You Spoken to the Morning Glories?" And so I decided to write an entire novel just around the title. Same thing. Tell Me Again How Great I Am. I wrote an entire book just around the title. I don't know why I can do that, but, and you've got some people that will plot, they've got this giant road map on a wall where they've got, the yarn and the tax, and it's telling you, who's who and what's what. But I've got a very good capacity for retaining knowledge and remembering everything that I do, and so there's really no conflicting elements in my stories. It's pretty seamless.
So what's that writing process for you? Is it you spend time like writing every day, or is this like there's thing that you you spend 10 minutes a day, or like what's kind of that process as a writer or your process as a writer?
So I don't really require too much sleep. I try, I can't sleep, and sleeping in for me is like anything after 6 a.m. But I'm usually up by 4, and then I'll go for a quick run, and then I'll walk Duke, and then I'll sit down and I'll try to at least write 2,000 words a day. Because anything from 0 to 20,000 words is considered a short story. From 20,000 to 40,000 words is a novella, and anything more than 40,000 words is a novel. That's how they categorize it. If you try to go for the bigger book publishing companies, they'll want anything over 40,000 words. So mine range between 50 and 85,000 words.
Now, is your writing most on like pen, paper, or you type?
I do it all by hand, in cursive as well. I'm a huge cursive person. And then it's just easier for me to write it by hand. And then once I have the entire story written down, then I will type it all out, and then I will format it, and then I will submit my idea for cover. And then I wait for that to come back, and then I just start the process. How
long would this novel take you normally?
Not very long. Yeah, but it's funny. I wrote so Tell Me Again How Great I Am is actually a novel full of short story compilations, because the main story, what I had intended it to be a novel, but then just the way it ended after like 18,000 words, just the way it ended right there was perfect, and I would have done it injustice if I tried to go anything further. So I decided that I needed to make that one an entire book full of short stories. But if I were diligent, I could do an entire novel in about 30 days, 1 month.
And writing how many thousand words again?
2,000 words a day, 40,000 words minimum to be considered a novel.
Wow. So when you sit down, so how many pages would that be? 2,000.
2,000 words, roughly 300. Roughly 7 pages, like lined paper.
So it's kind of like the Jerry Seinfeld thing where he's like, write a joke every day.
Yep.
And then before you know it, you have a stand-up routine. So you do a similar thing for that?
Kind of. I sometimes I don't even know what I'm going to write. Like this morning, I had dice, and so I rolled them. It landed on a 7, so I took 7 steps outside of my front door, and I stood there for 7 minutes, and I just observed. Then I went in and I wrote an entire short story about a hummingbird. Yeah, just a random hummingbird. So, he's got marital problems now, but he's a sassy hummingbird.
Huh, that's interesting.
Yeah, but...
So do you normally do, random things like that just to put yourself in a different situation you normally wouldn't be in, and then whatever comes to you?
Sometimes I'll go to the airport and just sit there and watch. And if one of my favorite things to do is I will go to cemeteries, because cemeteries have the most unique and cool and obscure names, and I'll use those for my stories. Yeah.
Interesting.
Have you ever been to the pet cemetery?
No, but I would love to go. I'm fascinated by that stuff.
There's one, I guess, between Searchlight and Boulder City, somewhere around that. There's just a bunch of deceased animals, and mostly animals,
style.
Right? Yeah. We've been to it before because one of our buddies took us, but
did they spell the word cemetery correctly, unlike in the movie?
No, it's actually really crazy. It looks like something out of Texas Chainsaw Massacre when you go out there. I mean, there are little tiny fences that people have made around it. There are headstones. There's some that have just a bunch of stuffed animals laying on top of it.
That's
and
interesting.
Different kinds of wear. Some people had candles or little burners and stuff near it. It's interesting. If you haven't seen it yet, that'd be something to go check out.
I think the only time I've ever actually been to a pet cemetery, I'm in Sigma Chi, a fraternity, and I joined that in college, and we had been on the wait list for years to go volunteer at the Best Friends Animal Sanctuary in around Kanab, Utah. And it's this massive one, and they've got so many animals. At the time, they had taken in a lot of the Hurricane Katrina victims, animals and stuff. But they've got this massive cemetery, and then, when you go in, you can pick out this little, polished rock, and you get to choose which headstone you want to put it on. So it's pretty interesting.
So as a writer, have you done that since a certain age, or just something you did every day, or just you decided I'm going to write a book and this is what I'm going to do?
I've always done it. I mean, I guess, my mom says she always knew that I would do something like this because I always spoke in complete sentences. I always text in complete sentences, and I'm very good at correcting people.
Do you correct them in full sentences, though?
I do.
Very good. Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard people before say that they always knew that they're going to be a writer, but it's interesting that they don't start as being a writer, that they do other career things first.
Exactly. If anything, it just gave me a lot of stories, that I can seamlessly weave like a literary quilt into my stories.
That's really cool. So is there ever a day when you wake up and you're like, I got to get these 2,000 words in? You actually have difficulty doing that?
I don't. I'm a creature of habit, so I kind of stick to my main routine. It gets interrupted halfway through because my dog will bring me something to throw or whatever, or he'll just want attention, but then I'll go right back to it. But I've never had an issue with it.
And do you typically use like all those words that you write, or is it that you write that down and then you're like, okay, I just got an idea out of what I wrote here, so then the next day I'm going to pull things from that to further refine it, or is it you just write like a seamless story?
Because you never really know where to start when you're going to write a story. So I just, I'll be like, okay, boom, there's a death in the family. So I'll start writing there. Like I just recently, yesterday, I wrote like a 4,800 word about, it's called Awake at Awake. And it's about a guy who has to, because he was murdered, he gets the opportunity to confess to all his sins. So he's standing there at his wake. And there's 38 people in the pews, and then he just looks up. He sees his dead body, and then the devil is standing next to him, and basically he has to admit to the devil what how he wronged all 38 people, and then when he gets to like sin number 1, the dark sin, he wakes up, and it was a dream the whole time, but it was basically his conscience weighing down on him. So then he was about to confess. Spoiler alert. He was about to confess, to his wife, what he had done, basically the big number 1 sin, but she already knew, so she poisoned him with cyanide. So before he could admit it, his throat dissolved and he died. And then, it ends with him just the devil saying, welcome to eternal damnation.
This is one of your short stories that was in that book?
No, I just wrote that one yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what did you have to do to get the inspiration for that? Was there dice involved, or did you?
So that one, what did I do? That was yesterday. Oh, that one was actually, I wrote that 2 days ago. My mistake. But I learned that my iPhone is waterproof. So I set it up in my pool underwater, and I tried to get like a cool angle of Duke and I swimming, and somehow that motivated that. Inspiration comes from anywhere and nowhere.
So when you were growing up, did you read a lot and like have some of this like imaginary or just imagination really, that maybe books that inspired you or movies, or what were things that you think that?
So every year I read Wuthering Heights every Christmas. I've done that ever since I was like 4 or 5 years old. But I've always had like my little pocket notebook, and I'm always writing random things down, and it's cool because a couple of years ago, so my great grandma Randall, she was a Cherokee Indian. She grew up on the plains of Oklahoma before it was a state, when it was a territory. And she actually, I've got both copies of it, but she wrote and typed out in the 40s, I believe, with a typewriter, or maybe the 30s. But she wrote her history, she from like the time she was born up until she was like 12 years old. And the stories they're fascinating because it shows you what it was like living back then, that they had covered wagons, stuff like that, where they were still scared of Native Americans. But she wrote so casual, and it was so fascinating. Like one instance, just, her brother went down to the creek to chop up some ice, and bring it back to the house, and he felt a sharp pain, so they called the doctor. And they put him on the kitchen table, because back then, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, your kitchen table was also your operating table. So they put him on there, they cut him open, and he's like, oh, his appendix burst. Just all you can do is comfort him. So they went back down to the creek, they gave him a chunk of ice, and they literally massaged his legs until he died, right there. And she just casually wrote about it. Like it was nothing. Yeah. So I guess it runs in my family.
I guess so.
Not cutting people open.
Right. So after writing a novel, are you like eager to get into the next one, or like I should probably take a little bit of a break, or do you just get those words in no matter what happens?
I've got so much adrenaline. I'll just get the words in no matter what. But like after the first one, because it was my first time, I could have done it with the public publishing company, but doing it myself was a little more liberating, and it gave me an idea on what I really want for future growth, like within the next 5 years. So then, now that I understood the process with the first one, and since the first one's doing fantastic, I wanted to just get the second one out there. So now that I've got the second one out there, now I want to get the third and the fourth, and you never know what tomorrow's going to bring, You never know if you're going to pass away. Vegas has some crazy drivers.
Very true.
So I just want to get it all out there as fast as I can. And, the only person that can hold me back is me. So, and I'm not going to hold me back. So, yeah, I will be a successful writer.
That's really good. When you said that the publishing company wanted to change things, do they want to change things about how you were writing the book or about how the process was or what?
So they had originally asked me to remove all of Chapter 7. Which, was a key component to the story. And I explained to them, how the rest of the story wouldn't work without Chapter 7, but they wanted me to basically pull it. They just, they didn't see that it fit. And then they wanted me to change up the ending because, another spoiler alert, I left it with a cliffhanger. And they wanted me to not leave it with a cliffhanger. They wanted it to be a happy ending, and not everything ends in a happy ending. So I was like, okay, well, you guys are asking too much changes, so I'm going to pull my contract. So I did. I sent over the whole cancellation process and everything, and, they're like, well, if you change your mind, we'll welcome you back. And, we ended on very good terms, and it was quite amicable, but I'm glad I did it by myself.
So what's the process then if you're self-publishing a book?
Getting an LLC. There's different platforms, but if you really want to get into like Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, the bigger ones like that, then you'll want to get your LLC. So like mine is going to be called Lead and Ink Publishing, And so although they try to, get you to pinpoint a certain state where you're going to be in, like I'm doing it online. So I'll refile when I get to Kentucky. But for the most part, yeah, it was once you have that, create your website, create your content. The hardest thing for me was that I didn't understand because I'm not really a social media person was marketing, especially digital marketing. Everything is digitally marketed. But I started understanding hashtags and the power of hashtags. Like that is a darn good thing because you can, and I don't know if you noticed on Instagram, but now you can you can view insights. It'll tell you how many people have viewed your post, and from where, from which avenue, whether or not it came from a hashtag or if they were friends, it'll tell you like 48% are not friends with you or whatever. So it's an interesting process and it's really cool for me to learn. So I want to take a social media a social marketing class so that I can just be more understanding of the process.
So how did you initially start marketing your book then?
I paid for it. I
definitely paid for digital marketing?
I paid for digital marketing, yes. And then I started getting featured on Instagram. Like my biggest feature got me 87,000 clicks, which was pretty cool, and I paid maybe $24 to be featured, through them. Once you post something like, with certain hashtags, you'll get people that say, hey, DM us to be featured. And so there were quite a few of them, and I did a lot of the research on each one, and I went through to see, what type of authors they were featuring, because I wanted to be featured in my own class because, there's so many different genres of writing, and I want to just dominate mine. And so then once I started doing that, I started getting featured, for free elsewhere by other people, by other authors and stuff like that. And so then there's a really big platform called allauthor.com. And they asked me if I wanted to be featured. I said yes. They sent me the information and this waiver thing. And I created a profile. I got featured there, and it's been pretty good. They feature my book. They do a lot of stuff. And then every Wednesday, it's like a promotional banner is what they call it, but they put my book in a certain way. So one of my most recent posts was my book being used as a poster over a bathtub, but it just looked really cool. And yeah, every Wednesday they give me a new post.
Huh, that's really cool. I didn't even know any of that stuff existed.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So as far as the network of authors is, like you had mentioned, you in that group that provides some marketing for you. Is there the real people? Like, like if you're walking down the street and you're not always knowing like, oh yeah, that's J.K. Rowling. Like I would never know. Like I don't know what she looks like actually, but I know like she's a big name and that's not what she goes by. So like, what's that like to be?
So really, people who write nonfiction are the ones that use their real name. They post their pictures on their books, stuff like that. But a lot of people write fictionally because there's an author, Amanda Quick. She also writes under like 3 different names. She's got I think close to 80 books, but she's just got all these different names that she writes under. Because each one is a brand, each one is its own company. Like Stephen King has written under different names as well. So it's so it's hard to really know people like that. I'm not so ingrained into this whole author community that I know others. Like I know a few. I talk to a few daily. One of my good friends, Joe, he was one of my first soldiers in the Army. His name is Joseph Kinsey, but he writes under the pen name J.S. Kins. And he writes like science fiction. He just, he's got his first book on the market. And so it's, and we published about the same time. We helped each other through the process. So there's a few that I talk to daily that I do know. But if it's someone big, I regret to say I will not know them.
No, it's awesome to have that with somebody to go through that process with you. It's always better when you have somebody to bounce ideas off of, or, hey, I ran into this mistake. What do you think about this? And
Absolutely.
I think that's so helpful.
And I think now that I've gone through the process, I've done the edits, I've done the changing, the struggle, the design, everything. Now that I have a real good understanding of it, I feel like once I actually start publishing, with Lead and Ink Publishing, then I think it'll be very successful. I'm a very success driven person, and I don't have a lot of quit in me anyway. I got nothing to lose, so may as well just go to the top. But so now that I understand the process, I guess I'm just gonna keep going up.
And is your book sold on like Amazon for download, or do you sell more paper copies?
Paper copies, it obviously ebook as well. And then I'm currently changing the dimensions of the first one so that I can sell it in hardcover now. So I qualify for hardcover publishing now. So that's going to be interesting. I'm really excited to get that. And then, you can get it through Amazon. You just search Cal Sherwood, or you can get it through my website, calsherwoodbooks.com, and it takes you right there. I like to. I also post because I have a blog, if you will, on my website where I post short stories that I've written.
So when you say the process for hardcover, what do you have to do to qualify to be a hardcover book?
You know what? I think you have to sell a certain amount. I'm not positive. They, because it took a while until Amazon reached out and they were like, hey, you now qualify for hardcover publishing. So I didn't ask questions. I was just like, all right, I'm going to redesign it and do it. So I will follow up with that.
What are the benefits of hardcover besides like? I always wonder that actually when I'm like looking at books, like why would you want a hardcover versus a paper cover? Besides like if you want to travel with it, like that's...
Yeah, I just like for me, I just it's like I guess it's like money. It's something more concrete, tangible. And so I was like, well, what's after that? Is it a steel cover? Leather cover, steel, and then lead.
Yeah. I think too that a lot of the hardcover books, they look nicer on a shelf too.
Absolutely.
Some of the paper backs are like thinner, but then they have like more colors in paper. But I think that the hardcover look more professional. I'm guessing. I don't know.
And maybe I can, you can obviously sell it for more than what the original book is being sold for. But what else I want to do is I want to design the hell out of it. Like I want it to be thick, and I want it to be leathery, and I want it to have gold foil, and it's going to look so cool. Because just with the paperback, they give you multiple options on how you want to do it. But I didn't settle. I chose a matte cover versus gloss. I just thought it, laid out better.
So you just got back from a book signing.
Yes, I went up to Portland, and I got to go to Powell Books, which is a very famous bookstore. It's really cool. It's interesting because it's in the middle of all the skyscrapers, and it's got I think 7 different levels, but the levels are like different colors. And so my favorite one was the Pearl, level, but it's really interesting. And then, they gave me the okay and the placard so that I could start selling like stacks and stacks of books. Then I'll be featured up front.
Very nice. And you had an interesting story about the plane ride as well.
Yeah, so there's lovely couple. Megan and Aaron, I believe were the names, and they had eaten quite a few edibles, and they were just very friendly. They've got 5 kids, and they're only 32, both of them. So they come to Vegas every 4 months so that they don't, just discipline their kids the wrong way. And so they overheard me talking, and so then they asked me about it. In fact, those 2 alone bought 6 copies of my book, 3 copies each, and they didn't know why. But, they're like, yeah, we just bought 6 copies in case we lose some. I'm like, okay, awesome. But then she let the flight attendant know. And so before we took off, he announced it to the entire plane. He's like, if everyone can take out their social media device, cell phone, tablet, and go to www.calsherwoodbooks.com, go ahead and pick up this book and order it now because we have a author on the plane. And so then it was awkward, but it was kind of fun. And I was at the very front of the plane, so luckily, everyone's like looking around like, who is it? Who is it? And I'm just sitting there going into my turtle shell. But yeah, so then I checked the rhythmic thing on Amazon after that, and I had sold like over 80 copies.
Just from them announcing on the plane?
Just from them announcing it on the plane, yeah.
That's awesome.
And so it was a good week. And I used my trip to Portland and also to the coast and then to the forest. I used it for a photo op, so I took my books and I took pictures in random places. So there's this one rock on the beach that has haystack rock in the background, and so I posted it to my Instagram, but you can see it's pretty cool.
I love that. You can take it all spots and you can have a photography
Absolutely.
thing here. But speaking of too, like, so, as you're going into fiction, and I feel like you can write, and do you ever have a thought about like going into other places, like, screenplays or maybe even other channels of writing?
I will definitely. So there has been some buzz about adapting it to the screen. So I'm totally open to the idea. I think, especially the Morning Glories, I think would make a fantastic movie just because there's so much to it, so many different elements, and hopefully it'll be the next Harry Potter.
And you also said that you were writing music as well?
Yeah, so last year I had submitted songs to BMG, Big Music Group, and I totally forgot about it. And then they reached out to me about 5 or 6 weeks ago, and they're like, hey, sorry for the delay. Somehow I guess it ended up in a spam folder. But they're like, we're very interested, and we'd like to offer you a deal. So they're actually going to produce the songs and write the music, have the singers sing it and everything. And then so I should be getting one of those, which is a song called Ode to Moving On. I should be getting that back this week to see how it is. But then basically, and they pitch it to big artists like Little Big Town, Kelsey Ballerini, and some other country artists. So it'll be interesting to get into that realm as well. Because writing is writing, whether you're writing a song, a poem, or a story, or a book, a novel. It's all just kind of grist for the writer's mill.
When you're writing songs, do you think about the melody, or you just strictly think about the lyrics? I
try to write a good hook first, and then from there I will, it's so fun to play with words. Like I have one that I wrote that they're going to be producing next. The hook is, what is it? It goes, as I'm descending, it's always this ending. My heart's always bending while your heart is... Wait, no, I'm sorry. As I'm descending, it's always this ending. My heart's always mending while your heart is bending. Instead, it should be mending while my heart is lending, but my heart is pretending that it isn't blending. So I wanted to write an entire song around that verse, and that's what they liked that. So it's fun to mess with words and rhyme them together.
I love that.
Now you have the books already published, and you said that Alexa can read your book.
Yes, so so right now, Alexa, if you just like say, if you have an Echo Dot, whatever, and you're like, Alexa, read the Morning Glories, she'll read it, and she's got kind of a robotic voice, but it does read. I'm going to either get a voice actor, but I kind of want to read it myself. So yeah, I will take that next step as well.
How long do you think that takes to read a book that long?
That long? Probably about 5 hours nonstop.
Okay. Pretty fair amount of time to spend in a room by yourself, I guess. So you would just record it on your phone, or you probably go to a professional studio or something?
I
for
think
that?
you'd go through a professional studio. I know they've got like different programs where you can do it, but I would want it to be clear, concise. I wouldn't want there to be word fumbles like I just did reading those lyrics for you guys.
And you have a book signing coming up here in Vegas, right?
Yeah, so in October, around the 8th, it should be either the Barnes & Noble off of Decatur. Yeah, no, off Rampart, sorry. Either that one or the one off of, what was the other road I told you? Rainbow, off Rainbow. So it's going to be one of those, but around then is when the book should actually be on the shelves. In Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, they're backlogged.
Okay. You'll have that on your website updated when you're going to be there?
Absolutely. I update it roughly every week. I just redesigned it. I'll probably redesign it again next week. I like to switch it up.
Okay.
So what's something you've learned and you wish you knew sooner?
Money management skills. Unfortunately, I wasn't raised with the bills first, fun later, so I had to take some hits, and I had to learn along the way. But then it got to the point where, I was teaching money managing skills to like soldiers and stuff like that. But so it would be that. And honestly, I would have approached writing a lot more soon, having known the process and stuff like that. You're never too old to follow your dreams. And so I don't know why I waited so long, and obviously education. I would have just really taken education more serious. And I would have gotten my degree in a different realm had I known. But I guess it all led to this, and it all led to having really cool stories to write about, like torturing my mother.
And what's something you commonly see in your practice that you wish more people knew?
I'm pretty obnoxious when it comes to my writing. I love to use big words, but I like to use them in such a way that the sentence defines them. So even if you don't understand the word, the sentence will help you define it and understand it. I just wish more people read. We're not really in the age where people like to read as much as we used to. Now that when we all came up, there wasn't social medias. I didn't have a cell phone till like my sophomore year in college. So I just wish more people read, and appreciated the value and of a tangible book and the smell of the pages.
You're saying that some of that came into play when you're actually picking the design for your book.
Yeah, it did. You get quite a few different options, when it comes to format, font, page selection, page color. So I didn't want to go for a white because I just felt like that would be too corporate. So I wanted to do something, that would look like it's already aged. So I chose like a cream colored paper, or like a papyrus almost. And, you get to choose every aspect of it, but cover design is always the funnest.
How do you approach cover design?
Honestly, there's this really good program. It's called Fiverr.com. And you've got all these freelance graphic artists, and they're pretty moderate too, because I tried to design my first cover and it did not work in my favor at all. It looked like it was a kindergarten drawing. So I reached out to this freelancer from Ukraine, and her name is Rebecca with 1 C, and she's fascinating, and I just explained my process or what my vision was, and I've never had to ask for a revision. She gets it right on first time.
That's really cool. I think when you can talk about whatever that you're envisioning and someone is able to create that and like have that understanding of listening to whatever is your personality is, the way you describe it, I think it's really awesome that somebody can create that.
Absolutely. Because, if you were going to try to explain something to me, and try to have me draw it, I wouldn't be able to do that. So it's really cool to have been able to team up with Rebecca and just see the way she works. It takes maybe 3 days, and she gives me all the zip files and everything, and then they just turn out fantastic.
I love that. I know you have some book signings and coming up, but what else is something you've been working on, whether it's professionally, mentally, physically, professionally?
Well, I like I said, I'm starting to sell merchandise on my website, so every 15 days I design a new shirt that, is for sale. It's only for sale for 15 days, and then it's a redesign, so I'll never sell the same product more than that. And all those proceeds, I just have it randomly select, like, Girl Scouts of America. That's not the one, but I'm just giving you an example. Basically, I'm going to try to team it up with Team Achilles so that all those donations just go there. So, because it is a promotional T-shirt. It either has a quote from my book. It's designed very cleverly. Then it'll have my website on the back, and yeah, so now I'm really starting to get into the whole merchandise aspect. I have this pop socket of my book cover on the back of my phone. I want to start, selling those in the in my website. But I'm trying to do this without having inventory.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely a tough thing to do.
It is. It is. Now it's possible, but there's just certain ways to go about it.
And what do you want to leave the listeners with?
Just write. Write everything down. It doesn't matter how obscure it is, because the most obscure weird sentences and words to you, might be something to somebody else. So everybody in them has a story. It's an old adage. Everybody, it's been said that since forever, probably since the Bible. But tell your story. It's more easier than ever to write your story, to publish a book. And even if you touch one person with your story, then that should be your goal. My goal is not to get rich and sell all these books. My goal is for people to see my passion, which is writing, creative writing, fiction. And just the fact that I've been able to reach so many people, and they're like, hey, I loved your story, I loved this, I was able to relate to this character, that's what it was about for me in the end.
I love that. How can people find you?
They can go to my Instagram, Cal, Cal_Sherwood, SHERWOOD, or they can go to my website, www.calsherwoodbooks.com. Soon they'll find me in the stores, but right now it's through the website and through Amazon.com.
Perfect. And we'll link those to the show notes too.
Thank you very much.
We really appreciate your time. You have tons of interesting stories. I'm sure that we could continuously talk. Maybe we'll have to have you on in the future. Hear some more stories.
I would look forward to that. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
We'd like to thank you for listening to La Vida Las Vegas podcast. We hope you enjoyed the time with our guests as much as we did. It would help us out so much if you could share, subscribe, or review our podcast, or any combination of the three. Thanks again, and remember to take care of yourself.